Rodgers gets the snap. Blitz is on. Rodgers scrambles left, winds up Rainbow.
Cobb.
He's got Cobb at the 10 to the 5
Yes!
to the end zone. Touchdown and a dagger. Oh my goodness! An NFC North Division Championship dagger.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Real Packers Talk, the podcast dedicated to everything green and gold. I am your host, Ethan Peltier. You can find me anywhere on Instagram or Twitter at Real Packers Talk. Additionally, you can find the podcast on YouTube and Spotify/Anchor. I'm back today to continue on the prospect profile series, going over the first of the 2 second-round picks that the Packers had in the 2023 draft, which would be Luke Musgrave. We went ahead and got him like I said, in the second round at 42 overall. This was included, or I guess the pick itself, pick 42, was included in the trade package for Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. So I just want to go over his profile, similar to how I went over Lucas Van Ness yesterday. I'm going to go over some, his college production, talk about his strengths and weaknesses, and then kind of finish it off with looking at what his role could be for this upcoming season. Additionally, I also want to go ahead and cover the Jordan Love news. Jordan Love received a 1-year extension. There were a lot of people who were questioning whether or not the Packers were going to give him his 5th-year option, or if they were going to take that 5th-year option and extend him. They ended up going a bit of a different route. Still extending him, just not with the 5th-year option. I'll get into that later towards the end of the episode. So for now, let's just focus on Luke Musgrave, which I've actually got a ton of notes here. I'm ready to just jump right into it. So without further ado, here we go. So I think first and foremost, heading into this draft, the Packers wanted to address tight end. It was obviously a position of need for reasons that I'll get into in just a moment. But this was a very deep tight end class. I figured that they were going to address it early, which they did, and they actually ended up picking more than one tight end, which, again, I will eventually cover our later picks. Today, we're just going to be going over Luke Musgrave. So, at pick 42 overall, out of Oregon State, they picked him up. He stands at 6 foot 6 inches, weighing in at 253 pounds, and this guy is pretty explosive. He's another one of those, big athletes that are fast and strong, and he has a really high RAS score, which I'll go over in just a minute. But I honestly like the value of this pick. He was, from every source that I've seen, the general consensus is that he was the number 3rd ranked tight end in this draft, behind Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer, I think, out of Notre Dame. I might be saying that wrong, so forgive me if that is the case. But I like this value. He was the 3rd overall ranked tight end according to the NFL's website, their draft website. And sure enough, he was the 3rd tight end that was picked. So again, good value, not complaining with that at all. And the Packers are known to select athletes. So when you look at his measurables, it makes sense. Now, the number one question that people are going to have is, well, did he produce in college? What did he do at Oregon State? And I don't want to sound disappointed, but it's not a lot. And here's why. First of all, the dude played through a shortened 2020 season because of COVID. And then I believe in either his junior or senior year, he ended up getting hurt, which shortened his season as well. So the dude just hasn't had a ton of opportunities to go out on the field and produce, but when he has been on the field, he's done well. One thing that I would like to see more from him is a little bit better run blocking, as well as when he does get in the open field with the ball in his hands, I'd like to see him make more people miss or break tackles. He doesn't get a ton of yards after catch, which is fine. Those are things that you can try and sharpen up. But overall, I think that he's a pretty athletic guy. I'll say it again, I think the value's great, and considering the fact that we have a pretty short list at tight end right now, they needed to address this. As it stands, or heading into this draft at least, the Packers had Josiah DeGuara and Tyler Davis as their top 2 tight ends on the roster. We still don't know if Mercedes Lewis is going to re-sign. I tend to doubt it. However, I would love to be pleasantly surprised. So like I said, we also lost Robert Tonyan to the Bears. So all of our tight ends, all of our starters are gone, essentially. You need to restock and rebuild in that room, and I think that Luke Musgrave can help out a lot. I think he can also step in day one and be a starter, based on the fact that we don't really have anyone else. And if you ask me, Josiah DeGuara is not your prototypical tight end that you just line up on the end of the line and have him go out and run routes and stuff like that. To me, he's more of a blocking tight end slash, I don't want to call him a fullback because that's not the position he plays, but to have him as a lead blocker in the backfield, I think that is something that he does really well at. And we might even see Luke Musgrave in the backfield a little bit this year, and he might run routes out of there, but I think that because Musgrave is that much better of an athlete than DeGuara, we're going to see actual opportunity for him to go out and produce. I do want to go over his college stats, but before I do that, I did want to mention a rumor that I saw on Twitter, and this is from Andy Herman, who is one of my favorite Packers podcasters slash coverage. Like, I just love his coverage of the team. I think he has very concise points. I definitely love to hear what he has to say. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if it's coming from him, I don't think it's a bunch of BS just for the sake of it. I think he has legitimate sources, and I don't necessarily know what this implies, but he put out on Twitter that numbers 89, number 2, and 31, which respectively that would be Mercedes Lewis, Mason Crosby, and Adrian Amos from last season. All three of those numbers have yet to be given out yet to any of the rookies or undrafted guys, which I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if that implies that there's a chance. I know that the Packers openly stated that they have not closed the door on Adrian Amos, which I would love to see him back, especially considering that our safety room is so short right now. But I just wanted to briefly put that out there, that there is a small chance that Mercedes Lewis and Adrian Amos return. Mason Crosby is, of all of those three players, I think he's the least likely to return, especially considering that we did draft a kicker this year, which I will get into later this week. But yeah, if we could re-sign those guys to team healthy deals, I would be okay with that. Definitely not opposed to bringing back some fan favorites. But yeah, now I want to hop into Luke Musgrave's college stats, and then we'll wrap it up with his strengths and weaknesses, and then briefly go over the Jordan Love contract. Musgrave played a total of 4 years at Oregon State. As a freshman, he really didn't do much, and that was in 2019. He only had 2 catches for a handful of yards. In 2020, he had 12 receptions for 142 yards, and that was, again, the shortened COVID season, so not surprised to not see a ton of production. And then in 2021, he had 22 receptions for 304 yards and a touchdown, and then finally, in 2022, he had 11 receptions for 169 yards and a touchdown. So he's had 2 touchdowns in 4 years. Just over. I'm trying to do the math in my head right now. I should have calculated this beforehand. But just over, let's see, 200, 600 yards total. So it's, people are probably going to look at that and scratch their heads and be like, where's the production? Again, he was hurt. He played in a shortened season. I'm not too worried about that. Yes, would you like to see the guys that you pick up in the draft come in a little bit more polished maybe, or at least having more tape to point out and be like, okay, we know what we're getting? Unfortunately, we don't. And inherently, or because of the nature of his injury history, it is a bit of a gamble. So I do want to mention that this is not a safe pick necessarily. I've mentioned that I like the value, but this could totally blow up in our faces. He could totally not pan out at all. On the other hand, he probably is the most athletic tight end that the Packers have had on their roster in years. Again, to bring up Andy Herman, he tweeted that this is the most explosive tight end that we've had on the roster since Jermichael Finley. That's a big deal. Because if he can even amount to a fraction of the potential that Jermichael Finley had, Musgrave will be a monster for years to come. Looking at his RAS score, he had a total RAS score of 9.95, which is, again, insane. The dude is a total athlete, can run all over the field, has a huge catch radius, fast, maybe a little bit, maybe not as fast as you would like, at least. I see people who point at his 40 time, which was a 4.62, and they thought, oh, he could probably run a little bit faster. I personally think that he plays faster than 4.62 based on the tape that I've watched. He could probably put on a little bit of weight, especially when it comes for like the run game, for his blocking and all that. But again, this pick makes sense to me for the very sole purpose that he is an athlete, and the Packers love their athletes almost more than they love anything else. So yeah, strengths. As I've said probably 100 times in this episode, he's an explosive athlete, huge catch radius, can run routes very crisp. Obviously, you're probably going to want to develop that route tree a little bit more, but that's something I'm not too worried about. As far as weaknesses go, I do want to mention again the injury history, the lack of production based on that, and therefore the lack of tape. This is a risky pick. This is a pick that could pan out and be really great or not work out at all. It might sit somewhere in the middle, so we'll see. But I do like I like Musgrave as a player, and I like his fit in Green Bay. Hopefully, they can get him on the field early, and we can just get him going and start that, get a rapport going between him and Jordan Love. Speaking of Jordan Love, let me segue into the next part of this episode, which I real quickly just want to go over this. This morning, it was announced that Jordan Love signed a 1-year contract extension with the Packers. The Packers had until today to pick up his 5th-year option. They obviously decided not to do that. And when I look at this deal, I actually really like it. So let me break down the details of it for you so you understand what I'm talking about. He signed a 1-year, $22.5 million deal, $13.5 of which is guaranteed. And it is an incentive-based deal, meaning that Jordan Love can make all $22.5, or a whole $22.5, $22.5 million if he plays well and meets those incentives. If he's meeting those incentives, he probably turned out to be pretty good. If he didn't, oh well, at least you didn't fork over $20 million a year for a 5th-year option for a guy that hasn't played for you yet. And I know that a lot of people are pointing to the Brian Gutekunst quote from the other day where he basically said, well, $20 million's a lot of money to pay for a guy who hasn't played. And I don't know why people are upset at him for saying that. He's telling the truth. That is not a knock on Jordan Love. I don't think that the front office does not have confidence in him. In fact, I think they have everything. I think they have all the confidence in the world in Jordan Love. Why on earth would we have gone through this whole hassle of trading Aaron Rodgers and doing all these things if we didn't actually think that he could be legit? Not saying he'll be a Hall of Famer, but I think Jordan Love will be all right. So I like this. I think that it's a nice little prove-it deal. Good deal for both sides, for the Packers and Love. And for Love, it's good because instead of making $20 million a year, he has the opportunity to now make more than that. And again, if he does do that, he's put on a lot of great tape, and he'll probably get a big contract extension with the Packers. This is very much a, hey, show us what you got type of deal. For the Packers, they don't have to fork over $20 million to a guy that they've never who's played one game for them, who started in one game, and they have a little bit more leeway. If Jordan Love sucks, they can move on, and they can ship him right off. They can trade him, they can cut him, they can do whatever they want with him. But at the very least, now we have the option. It's not going to hurt the team if he doesn't pan out as much as it would have hurt them had they given him the 5th-year option, and he didn't pan out, if that makes sense. I know I'm just kind of babbling on right here. I'm really excited about Jordan Love. Obviously this is going to be a new era, and I've mentioned this a few times in the last couple of episodes, but man, I'm just so excited for this kid. The smile on my face right now is huge. I wish you could see it right now, but I can't wait to see him develop a rapport. I'm glad we went out and got him some offensive weapons, including Luke Musgrave. So yeah. But other than that, I don't really have much for y'all today. I will be continuing this draft prospect series, probably tomorrow, assuming that I have time, and that would be, our next pick will be going over Jaden Reed, which, spoiler alert, I'm really excited to get to that. I think he is going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you so much for making Real Packers Talk a part of your daily listen. I appreciate you all so much. I will catch you later this week with some more prospect profiles. But until then, as always, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Real Packers Talk. Additionally, the podcast is found on YouTube and Spotify/Anchor. Thank you so much again. And as always, go Pack Go.